And so he was always what they called a muscle man in a show, all right? And he'd already worked with Bert Lahr in a great song, the Woodchopper's song. And
wait a second, Bert Lahr, the Lion?
The Lion. Bert Lahr, and most of these people were from vaudeville and burlesque. And Yip knew them in the 20s, but he actually worked with Bert Lahr in this Walk a Little Faster and another review. I forget that name, but he and Yip and Arlen gave Bert songs to sing, which allowed him to satirize the opera world, if you want, or a send-off of Rich, you know. And so they had that relationship. Also, Yip knew Jack Haley, the Tin Woodman. And Yip also worked with Bobby Conley as a choreographer in the early 30s on his shows, who was also the choreographer for The Wizard of Oz. So he had a cast here with Arlen who were, you know, sort of Yip's men, you know what I mean? So when Yip went to Arthur Freed, the producer, who was too busy to work on this musical, and Mervyn LeRoy had nothing to do with it practically, because he had never done a musical before, so it became a vacuum in which the lyricist entered, because he was already to do so. Yip was always an active, you know, organizer. And so the first thing he suggested was that they integrate the music with the story, which at that time in Hollywood they usually didn't do. They'd stop the story and you'd sing a song, they'd stop the story and sing a song. That you integrate this. Arthur Freed accepted the idea immediately. Yip and Harold then wrote the songs for the 45 minutes within a 110-minute film of the Munchkin sequence and into the Emerald City and on their way to the Wicked Witch, when all the songs stopped because they wouldn't let them do anymore, okay? You'll notice then the chase begins, you see, in the movie.
Why wouldn't they let him do anymore?
Because they didn't understand what he was doing, and they wanted a chase in there. So anyhow, Yip also wrote all the dialogue in that time and the setup to the songs, and he also wrote the part where they give out the heart, the brains, and the nerve, because he was the final script editor. And there was 11 screenwriters on that, and he pulled the whole thing together, wrote his own lines, and gave the thing a coherence and a unity, which made it a work of art. But he doesn't get credit for that. He gets lyrics by Yip Harburg, you see. But nevertheless, he put his influence on the thing. And
who wrote The Wizard of Oz originally, the story?
Yeah, Frank L. Baum was an interesting kind of maverick guy who at one point in his life was an editor of a paper in South Dakota, and this is at the time of the populist revolutions or revolts or whatever you want to call it in the Midwest, because the railroads and the Eastern City banks absolutely dominated the life of the farmers, and they couldn't get away from the debts that were accumulated from these. And Baum set out consciously to create an American fable so that the American kids didn't have to read those German grim fairy stories where they chopped off hands and things like that. You know, he didn't like that. He wanted an American fable. But it had this underlay of political symbolism to it, that the farmer, the scarecrow, was the farmer. He thought he was dumb, but he really wasn't. He had a brain. And the Tin Woodman was the laborer in the factories who, with one accident after another, he was totally reduced to a tin man with no heart, all right, on the assembly line. And the Cowardly Lion was William Jennings Bryan, who kept trying, was a big politician at that time, promising to make the world over with the gold standard, you know. And the wizard, or the humbug type, was the Wall Street finances, and the Wicked Witch was probably the railroads, but I'm not sure, all right? So it was a beautiful matchup here with Frank Baum and Yip Harburg, okay? Because in the book, the word rainbow was never once mentioned. And you can go back and look at it. I did 3 times. The word rainbow is never once mentioned in the book. And the book opens up with Dorothy on a black and white world that Kansas had no color. Just read the first paragraph in it. So when they got to the part where they had to get the song for the little girl, they hadn't written it yet. They had written everything else. They hadn't written the song for Judy Garland, who was a discovery by one of Yip's collaborators, Burt Lane, and nobody knew the wonder in her voice at that time. So they worked on this song, and at that time, Ira, Yip, Larry Hart, and the others thought that the composers should create the music first. Now, they were both locked into, the lyricist and the composer were locked into the storyline and the character and the plot development. So they both knew that at this point there was a little girl in trouble on the Kansas City environment, all right, and that she yearned to get out of trouble, all right? So Yip gave Harold what they call a dummy title. It's not the final title, but it's something that more or less zeroes in on what the situation is all about and what this little girl is going to take a journey, all right? So Yip gave a title, I Want to Get on the Other Side of the Rainbow.
Now here's what happened, and I want you to play this symphonically. Okay, I said, my God, Harold, this is a 12-year-old girl wanting to be somewhere over the rainbow. It isn't Nelson Eddy. And I got frightened. And I said, let's save it for something else, but let's not have it then. Well, he felt, he was crestfallen, as he should be. And I said, let's try again. Well, he tried for another week, tried all kinds of things, but he kept coming back to it, as he should have. And he came back. And I was worried about it, and I called Ira Gershwin over, my friend. Ira said to him, he said, can you play it a little more in a pop style? And I played with rhythm. Okay. I said, oh, well, that's great. That's fine. I said, now we have to get a title for it. I didn't know what the title was going to be. And when he had, I finally came to the thing, the way I logicalized it. I want to be somewhere on the other side of the rainbow. And I began trying to fit on the other side of the rainbow. When he had a front phrase like, da, 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 da. Now, if you sang E, you couldn't sing E, E, E. You had to sing O. That's the only thing that would get out. I had to get something with O in it, see? Over the rainbow. Now, that sings beautifully, see? So this sound forced me into the word over, which was much better than on the other side.
Anyhow, Yip, Arlen worked on it. He came up with this incredible music, which, if anybody wants to try it, just play the chords alone, not the melody. And you will hear Paco Bell, and you will hear religious hymns, and you will hear fairy tales and lullabies just in the chords. No one ever listens to that, but try it if you play the piano.